Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Yeah, some neighbors are just bored living in this world because bringing our OP to this point wasn't necessary at all. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Neighbors parked all their cars in front of my parents' home and won't move them. California here, getting that out of the way, and full disclosure, it's not my home. The home belongs to my parents, but I house sit for weeks or months at a time for them and deal with the neighbors enough to care. Plus, I love my parents and want what's best for them. I'll just be saying my home or my driveway so I don't have to keep typing my parents' driveway or my parents' home over and over. These neighbors moved in a year or two ago and have made life so uncomfortable for my parents, they're actually talking about selling their home to move. Their marriage home with all the memories. I thought they were selling because they wanted to move out of state, but I've since found out it's because of them. My parents' neighbor's kid, a very immature 20-year-old, has a beater and he leaves it parked in front of my parents' front yard. He has it parked in the middle so that it takes up all the space and no one can park on either side of it without blocking a driveway. It's been in 3 wrecks in the past year, and currently he won't drive it. Why? I don't know. Perhaps it isn't in running condition anymore. All I know is it hasn't been driven in over a month. Well, until what happens next. I want to also mention they have a full garage. They also have the same size space in their front of their yard to park in, which happens to always be empty unless they have company, and a driveway that can fit and does fit 3 of their cars, including another beater that's never left the driveway since they moved in. I politely asked him to move his car when I saw him several weeks ago, and he flipped out on me, cursing and screaming at me. He followed me to my car and was yelling at my car door window to the point it had fog from his breath. Several days later, I visited my parents, and he had his friends parking in front of his car so as to block our driveway partially while still leaving the spaces empty behind his car that would block his own driveway, and all the spaces in front of his yard were empty too. I spoke with my parents, and they said the kid had his friends doing that ever since I'd asked him to move his car as payback. They said he's really mean and to just let it go. This didn't sit right with me, so I later, after visiting, went to the neighbor's home to speak to the parents. I explained the situation and asked they speak with the boy about moving the car and his behavior towards me with the disrespect and language. Bad idea. I assumed they were decent, normal people, and this was just an out-of-control teen. I assumed Mom would just tell Billy, go move your damn car or something, and it would be taken care of. Turns out he got it from Mom and Dad. I get the dad yelling at me to F off and get off his property as the mom, from another room, starts bellowing about how I did not just tell her how to parent and he can do whatever he wants and F me and my parents. I didn't know this at that time, but have since found out my parents believe the neighbors keyed their car about 6 months ago. My mom asked the neighbor mom and her son not to smoke at the edge of their driveway as it's right next to my parents' bedroom window and they'd be awakened by them talking while smoking in the middle of the night. Apparently that set them off and they would talk extra loud while smoking and would hold up a phone playing music to the window as in F you to my mom and dad. That's also when their car got keyed. So since I made the mistake of talking to the neighbor parents, it's upgraded from just the kid's one car and his friends when they come over. Now the parents are retaliating too. They finally moved the beater, but only to move their cars from the driveway to taking up the 2 spaces in front of our yard adjacent to their driveway. The one car parked just enough to have the front poking into our driveway. The beater was moved so it's parked on the other side of our driveway in front of our other neighbor's yard, but also sticking out enough to be in the way of our driveway too. Sorry for the run-on sentence. Update. We just consulted a civil lawyer and got his help drafting up a cease and desist letter. And our second story. Don't want to be disturbed? Have fun losing 4 hours? I work on the railway as a guard, so my job involves checking and selling tickets, giving people travel information and advice, and most importantly, keeping them safe and looking after them if there's an emergency. Sometimes this means telling them off if they've got their feet on the seats as well. I was working a train down from London one afternoon, checking tickets and trying to be helpful, when I came across a gentleman in an otherwise empty coach who had his set on the seats and massive noise-canceling headphones on his head. I asked if I could see his ticket and if he'd be so kind as to remove his feet, but of course he couldn't hear me. I asked again, slightly louder, and again he ignored me. I took my carriage key and used it to rap upon the window, creating a loud and clear knocking sound that normally cuts through headphones and sleep alike, but even this did nothing. So the final resort, I took a firm grasp on the back of his seat and gave it a shake. This was enough to get his attention. "Good afternoon, sir," said I. "Tickets, please. And would you mind keeping your feet off the seats?" "What the F do you think gives you the right to disturb me?" he said. "Well, sir, it's my job to check your ticket, so if you'd be so good as to show me yours, I'll be happy to leave you alone. But I still need you to take your feet off the seats." "Oh, F off, you Jobsworth," he said, while getting out his ticket. "I don't want to be disturbed again, do you understand?" "Absolutely, sir, but please take your feet off the seats. Or how about we put a newspaper down first? Or you could take off your shoes, perhaps." Grumbling, he found an old newspaper and spread it out on the seat opposite before placing his still-be-shoed feet back up. "Also, sir," I said, "it might be a good idea to turn your headphones down a tad, otherwise you might not hear important announcements." "I've made it quite clear that I don't want to talk to you. Now, F off." Now, one of the key skills in my job is knowing when to pick your battles, and I had no desire to make more work for myself by dealing with this gentleman, so off I effed. A few minutes later, I had a call from control letting me know that due to a signaling issue further down the line, my train was going to be diverted just after our next stop. As a result, we'd be missing out about 90% of the stations that we had been due to call at, and would be running directly to our final destination. I called up my driver to let him know about the change in plan, and then made an announcement to my passengers. "Good afternoon, everyone. This is your guard speaking. I've just received word from control that due to a signaling issue at Station B, this train will now be diverted between Station A and Station G, and no longer be calling at Station B, Station C, Station D, Station E, and Station F, and will instead be running fast directly to Station G. Any passengers for Stations B, C, D, E, or F should change at Station A. If you have any questions, I'll be walking through the train, so please do not hesitate to ask. Thank you." And so I walked through the train, talking to passengers, making sure that they all understood what was going on and where they would now need to change in order to get where they were going. Some of them were understandably annoyed, but I did my best to explain it all to them and to let them know that it was beyond our control. By the time I'd walked through the train, every single passenger knew exactly what they needed to do. Well, all the passengers but one. We arrived at Station A and quite a lot of people got off. I had an 8-coach train and now only about 20 or so passengers, so it was nice and quiet. I made one last announcement about the diversion, then shut the doors and gave the driver 2 on the bell, the signal that we were ready to start. I happened to be in the same coach as the gentleman from earlier, who now had his eyes open and was looking out of the window. I watched him as he watched the world slide by as we pulled out of the station, and I watched him as he felt us bounce over a set of points that we would not normally have crossed over. I watched him as he began to realize that the view out of the window was wrong, and that we'd gone down a different line to usual. And I watched him as we started to zip past stations that he had clearly never seen before as we took the diversion down to Station G. After a few minutes, he walked up to where I was sitting in my little guard's office and asked me what time we were due to arrive at Station B. Well, like I said in the announcements, we're not going to Station B anymore. We're running nonstop to Station G. I did make plenty of announcements about it. "Well, I didn't hear anything. Why didn't you tell me?" he shouted. "You made it perfectly clear that you didn't want me to disturb you, sir," I said, "and I'd warned you about being able to hear the announcements." "Well, I need to get to Station B. How am I going to get there now?" This was perfect. This was the moment that I'd been waiting for. I explained to him that now he was going to have to stay on this train until we got to Station G, wait for around half an hour or so, get another train from Station G to Station A, wait some more, and then get a bus from Station A to Station B. "How long's that going to take?" he asked. "Well," I said, "from Station A to Station G along the diversion is about an hour and a half each way, plus the waiting. So if the buses are good, about 4 hours or so, give or take." Well, needless to say, he was not happy about this, but there was nothing that I was able to do to help him out. And after all, he'd made it clear that he did not want me to disturb him. "Well played, sir, well played." Never understand why people act like this. I mean, you treat a waiter like this, and you think that the kitchen staff are going to stir your soup with a spoon? And our last story. The HOA has damaged our property and refuses to pay. I own a home in a community with a homeowners association. Our area doesn't have city water and instead has a shared well. There are meters in homeowner basements, and we periodically report the numbers to the HOA, who charges us for water usage based on local rates. Recently, the HOA purchased new smart meters and hired a contractor to install them. So we had to let them into our homes to turn off the water, switch out the meter, turn the water back on. Meanwhile, they also gave this contractor a list of a few random repairs in the neighborhood to also handle. After the contractor left our home, we found a couple of days later that our plumbing was not working correctly. A lot of money later, a plumber told us there's cement in our pipes and septic system. This seemed very related to the fact that the HOA had them fix a small section of the curb in front of our house. We went down the block to the contractor and asked them what the heck they did, and they said it was just disposing of the extra cement and not to worry because it gets filtered out at the treatment plant. Except we aren't on city water and sewer where our waste goes to a treatment plant. We're on septic, and that cement has now clogged our pipes. And the plumber believes it's damaged our septic system. The contractor came over and poked around for several hours. The three of them had a loud argument, and then they left. They've apparently stopped showing up for the appointments in the neighborhood for meter replacements, so the prevailing theory is they realized they messed up and ran away. Meanwhile, now the plumbing company worked on it for 2 days, hoping they could get it resolved without anything crazy, but they haven't made much progress. They're now at the point where they say they'll have to cut out and replace affected areas of pipe, which could be a little or it could be a lot. They're bringing in a septic company to consult on the septic system side of things. We've been in constant contact with the HOA since they're the ones that contracted with this company. They're trying to wash their hands of it, saying we'll have to directly sue the contractor. Meanwhile, the contractor seems to be something of a fly-by-night operation. From what I'm hearing, they were the lowest bid the HOA got for this work. They're from out of town, and the HOA doesn't have any real information other than the very common names of 2 guys and a phone number that's now going to voicemail. The HOA didn't get any proof of insurance or anything else like that, and we cannot find any real information about their business. It feels like trying to go after this contractor's barking up a dead tree. The HOA seems equally responsible because they hired an unvetted contractor. Update. So we decided to sue our HOA, allowed their insurance to handle it and make us whole. They paid for septic work required to return our system to its prior condition. I'd also be questioning why the HOA is able to charge you as a utility for a near-free resource. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.